All right, hello everyone. Here we are back for another guide here. And here you can see that we are going to be on Santa Ventura, hole number 7. Draw this in right now. And in terms of clubs, we're going to need some pretty good backspin on this. So Sniper 8 or more. Guardian 2 should work. Hammerhead's going to need to be quite developed. Hammerhead 6. And cat should also need about a 6. Now, there's going to kind of be a second case as well. When you get a severe headwind, you probably will not be able to hit that shot and actually stop it without getting it to roll down the hill. So you'll probably need a driver as well. So let's talk about those cases as well, just in case. So ideally, Thor's hammer would definitely be a good one to potentially give you a broad range of what you can do. I would say it's pretty equal split as to what you'll need between a POC or Thor's hammer. It really doesn't matter. You could even get away with, a POC 5 here without question. This is just it's going to be a really tough driver shot though. So anywhere around the green, okay, is pretty much good enough to solidify the win on this one. So, similarly with the extra mile, we can get away with, extra mile if we have to. And same with a POC 5, for instance. But I'm just going to assume that, for the most part, you're going to be playing with at least those clubs to begin with for this tour. So let's take a look at the shot. First off, especially the wood. So with the wood shot, I like to land, very centered here. And my typical shot usually, lands about here, second hop's right here, third hop, and then just a little bit of rollout like this, right towards the hole. The person that is pretty much going to win this hole the most is going to play the offset right, which is the hardest thing to master for this hole, is the ball guide offset. Keep in mind we'll be on the third tee deck here. And let's start to take a look at some of the cases here. Tailwind, headwind. Now what I'll typically do for the side is about max plus 20, give or take. Maybe 15 to 20%, somewhere in there. It really kind of just depends. We do end up usually in these lower surfaces like the bunker on one side or the other. But somewhere around the 15 to 20% extra is going to be pretty ideal. Similarly, for the tailwind, it's going to be also at least around 20-ish. There'll be times that I might go 25 as well, because you'll kind of have the tendency to, maybe not correct enough for the ball guide offset. So pulling back a little bit can sometime, kind of offset that a little bit. And for the headwind, it's going to be kind of conditional. I'll usually kind of max my headwind at about here. This is pretty much the most that I'll... Up, that's the wrong way. Those are tailwinds. So my headwinds will pretty much be kind of capped at about this mark. I won't even quite usually go to this because it's just going to be so much towards max, and you're going to have to go so much for these headwinds. So even at this purple case, you know, we're talking like max plus 30 at least. And you really start to get close to that max line. So let's talk a little bit about the line, because it should be somewhere around here or so. Somewhere up in here is going to be where your club switch is going to take place. And so what I'll usually end up doing for the headwind case, let me start to fill in these spins that I'll use. So what I'll usually try to do for this case is somewhere around 5.5. We'll end up getting up to max here at 6.5. But again, you know, this is kind of going to vary. You can see that there's a very large patch that you can hit. So it's going to be very land zone specific. So you can probably get away with, you know, max for a lot of wins. You would just have to kind of keep changing your land zone if you wanted to do it that way as well. But as I mentioned, you know, the biggest thing is going to be wind, you know, offset and being able to correct for the wind. So, you know, we have this mound right behind the hole where it just kind of falls down this hill, anything a yard or two past the pin. So, you know, you either have to kind of block it over here towards the right with the offset to keep it on this level as kind of, you know, kind of like a safe thing to do. Or, you know, depending on where your opponent is, you might have to get more aggressive. And the person that can, you know, definitely have the most control over the wind guide offset is going to be the person that ends up winning this shootout more times than not. But let's start to talk about, you know, all these numbers up here are definitely backspin numbers. Let's start to talk about the driver shot, because this is, you know, kind of a pain in its own right. So let's look at this. And what I'll usually try to do for this shot is kind of land around here, towards the top half of the sand, towards the rough, and just kind of scoot this out. Now, the harder this becomes harder, the stronger the wind is to actually execute. But this is pretty much the way that I'll do it, and I'll do it with top spin. So these are going to actually be top spin values. And what it'll usually, what I'll try to do with the ball guide is, you know, I'll have to make the ball guide rolling down the hill if I want it to be close, because it's a headwind, which means that it's going to compress when I actually play the wind. So it's going to start to compress down some. So what you want is your ball guide to look like it's rolling through the hole. And it's definitely going to be land, you know, you have to kind of take these with a grain of salt a little bit, because as your land zone up here changes, you know, this might not be the right amount of topspin. It's just kind of dictated by, so somewhere between 4 and 5, somewhere in between that range is what you're going to be looking for. And it's also going to be dependent upon how strong that wind is, because you might have to alter both of these numbers. As it gets stronger, you know, you're going to need more topspin. But as I mentioned, you know, with that ball guide, with the Thor's hammer, you're going to have the extended ball guide look. So it's going to be a more favorable club for this shot than the Apocalypse. The guy with the Apoc, they're going to have to kind of visualize or go off a feel a little bit more. And the chances of them actually adjusting enough here is going to be, you know, very challenging as well. You need to at least go max here, minimum. And as the wind gets stronger, you might need to go max plus 20. So you need to kind of stay in between that range for where you're adjusting. And most guys, you know, they get a little paranoid and they won't go enough rings here, and they'll end up landing up towards here, and it'll just plop right in the sand. It won't even roll through. So, you know, you do got to stay somewhat aggressive with that. And if you can just get it to the top of the sand, sometimes you'll win just by doing that. So really, you know, it does benefit to just get a little bit more aggressive there. And, you know, hopefully that helps you guys. Good luck with this hole, and I'll see you guys on the next guide.